So I had somebody come in my comments the other day talking about being married ain't no flex. Girl, you a lie. Baby, being married is the biggest flex you could ever make, okay? To have a man, especially a fine, strong man with a great brain and mind, shoot. For him to say he's going to protect and provide for you for the rest of your life, to have and to hold through sickness, through death, shh. Baby, yes, it's the best decision I ever made.
Walk her down the valley, pack a piece of heaven for the bottoms of her feet. Teach her how to jump and how to stretch when she reach, like the angels do, and you gon' make it through now. Tell about the healer, greater is the one within.
Welcome to Loving Christ Always, a podcast and YouTube channel devoted to spreading the teachings of Christ. This is a place where we come together as a sisterhood to grow in faith, connect with one another, and walk this journey with Christ at the center. Here we'll have weekly Bible studies, girl chats, and real conversations about what it means to truly live for Christ. My hope is that this space becomes a source of encouragement, wisdom, and a community for you. You can connect with me on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, through our email, and of course, right here on YouTube. If you ever need prayer, want to share a testimony, or just someone to talk to, feel free to reach out. I'm your sister in Christ, and I'm here for you. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that we could continue growing this beautiful community of women devoted to Christ. Drop a comment down below and let me know where you're from. I can't wait to connect with you. Let's seek God together, uplift each other, and walk in His love. Always.
Being married is a flex. It's the best thing ever. You just have to find the right person. When you truly find the love of your life and you build a life together, it is the most magical. It is the best thing in my life. My wife is the best thing that's ever happened to me, and we've been together for 12 years, and the love just keeps getting deeper. But do you know the one thing that people don't mention a lot, and this is why marriage is so important? Because as you build, like my wife and I have for 12 years, some of you who've been married for a long time will understand this, it's not even the love that grows deeper, it's the respect. She has had my back through the ups and downs for 12 years, and I have had hers. So the level of respect we have for each other is why we make compromises, is why we make sacrifices. That's why I would do anything for her. But I understand if you're new to dating, new to marriage, and you're only 6 months in, a year in, 2 years in, you haven't had enough experiences yet to really truly see the value of a marriage over 12 years. And some of you here have been married for 40 years with kids. I can only imagine the level of respect that you have for each other and the love. So if you find the right person, it's awesome. But I do agree that in some regards, marriage probably isn't for everyone. But if you're lucky enough to find your best friend and a partner that you can share your life with and face the world, it's amazing.
Is marriage still a flex? Well, this is going to be my perspective as a Christian woman in the Black community. Hey, and welcome, my brothers and sisters in Christ. Welcome back, or welcome to my podcast. I'm your host, Giselle Guinea, and today we're going to be diving into a conversation that's been trending online. Marriage isn't a flex. This phrase has sparked a lot of debates, especially in our Black community. But today, we're not just giving opinions, we're going deeper. We're looking into history, culture, and generational cycles, and most importantly, what God says. So grab your tea, your journal, and let's get into it. So I broke this video down into multiple parts, but this first part is entitled Marriage in the Past, Survival, Not Always Love. For many of our great-grandmothers and even grandmothers, marriage was more of a survival tactic than a partnership. Women didn't have rights. They couldn't even open their own bank accounts, get good-paying jobs, or even leave abusive situations. So they ended up staying in the marriage. That's what you'll hear when elders say, if you think that marriage today is hard, go ask your grandmother how she stayed 40 plus years. But was it a marriage built on love and mutual respect, or duty and dependency. Now, many of us can relate to this, whether we've had our mothers, grandmothers, or great grandmothers share their experiences with us. But me personally, I have seen women in my life and in my family who were in survival mode, and even to this day in survival mode when it comes to relationships. Sometimes they end up in situations where God did not ordain, so that leaves them relying on their flesh or relying on that person for assistance instead of trusting on God and leaning on God. And I say this because a lot of us know people who are in relationships, or let's say even our mothers were married or with these men, our great grandmothers were with these men, and God didn't orchestrate this marriage. God didn't put that in place. And they even say that that's a big regret for them. Not that they regret their children or whatever comes after them, but just being in a situation where God did not supply is a big regret for some of these women. So then they go on teaching the women from the next generations to not get married. Sometimes it's just that hurt. But overall, did you listen to God? Did God guide you into this situation? That is my question. That's the main question when it comes to this. But moral of the story is that many women act out of survival mode due to being in a situation God didn't call them to.
Being married is a flex. I mean, I'm just gonna say it. It's a big flex. Why is it desperate for a woman to want to be married to want a man? Like, we have been programmed, like literally programmed to no longer want families. A woman who wants a husband, who is doing the work on herself to find a good man, for a good man to find her, she is desperate, thirsty. Like, when did that become a thing? When did that become a thing? Like, being married is a flex. It's very much a flex, in my opinion. I just think that we have undervalued marriage, families, so bad that we see it like, oh, it's nothing. It's no big deal. It's just a piece of paper. And we've put other things above the family. And that's the problem. Everything comes before the family. Nobody cares about the family. Nobody values the family. So when a woman who wants a family, who wants a husband, who wants to worship the ground her husband walks on, she's desperate. That's sad.
Being married now is a flex. It's like we all kind of missed out. Being married now, being able to just have one person traveling, doing business partnerships, enjoying life. Maybe y'all got kids together, the whole nine. That is now a flex, especially if you two are in a healthy place. And when I see that, I'm like, that's it right there. That's the ultimate flex. Being online, complaining in forums, traveling solo, going on coffee dates, or any date for that matter of fact with multiple strangers month over month is no longer cool. And you can't make it seem cool to me because I know, like, for me, and I'm going to break it down. The more pictures I see with you by yourself on vacation, guy or girl, I'm like, oh, this is strange now, and myself included.
Now, with that being said, I want to dive into the second point, which is entitled The Rise of Independence and a Shift in Values. Our grandmothers told their daughters to be independent, and rightfully so, because they didn't want them stuck like they were. Then came the rise of women's rights. Women started working, owning homes, and rejecting the idea that their worth was tied to being a wife. But somewhere in that journey, we confuse independence with rebellion. And that rebellion didn't start in the 60s or 70s. It started in the Garden of Eden. And if you want to follow me into Genesis chapter 3, verse 6, it reads, "When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and was pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. Eve disobeyed God's instructions, and that same spirit of rebellion, of doing things our way, still lingers today. And ladies, that is a big issue. There is no problem with being independent for that season that God calls you to be single in your singleness. But when it comes to rebellion and passing down that gene of rebellion, that's when it goes against God's will.
Come on in here. Come on in here. I don't know who this is for, but getting engaged is not a flex. I don't care if you got engaged 30 days after you met somebody, 30 years after you met them. The real flex is to see if you can make it at least, I'm going to say 2 years of your marriage. I'm going to give you 2 years. Now these days people can't even make it to 6 months. That's the flex. Y'all need to stop getting on social media trying to prove to the world your relationship between you and the person that you want to be with. Because there ain't nothing more embarrassing than you getting on social media showing off your ring just to come back and say y'all ain't together, y'all broke up, or whatever the case may be. And plus, you don't know who's praying against you. Keep your relationship off of social media. Everything ain't meant for everybody. Okay.
A lot of women don't talk about how the reason why they genuinely want to get married is because they like the status associated with being called the missus. Because we know as women that society looks at us differently when we are married. When we are a wife, we get a lot more respect. So a lot of us are actually married to men who are disgusting.
I'm married, I got picked, I'm cool, but you married an undesirable man that really nobody wanted. So is that really like a goal?
If I'm gonna get married, the goal is to be in a healthy marriage with an upstanding man and on values, principles that's not gonna have me out here looking crazy. I feel like when women be out here bragging about, oh, I married this and oh, I married that, nobody give a fuck if your nigga be cheating on you all the time. That ain't nothing to brag about.
Or if he's just not a good person.
Women are out here getting married for status and money left and right, and are miserable inside of those marriages. But life is about you having to pick your pain, right? So life gonna be hard anyway, so that means you gotta pick which kind of hard is it gonna be.
Because marriage, I think of like the partner that God assigned for me, not the woman I pick, not the one that's my preferences and that I like. Like this really the partner that's supposed to help me fulfill God work. So it's like when I talk about what I want and me wanting to leave and how I feel, then it's like now my feelings more important than God work. So it's like we ain't got I done seen them old school couples where they done stop sleeping in the same room, they done stop, but God work still come before how they feel about each other and what they looking at and what they used to see in each other 30 years ago. And that's how I view marriage, you feel me? So it's like, that's why for me, divorce not an option, because it's like, bro, divorce is what we want, bro, but we were sent and paired together for an assignment, you feel me?
And
that
I agree
assignment,
with you. And that's what we talk when we talk about, and when you said earlier, like actually picking somebody or choosing somebody that you, because we just be getting into relationships and then getting married, like, and so it's not the devil worked up in that house. I'm gonna let you know it wasn't God.
Now, I don't want to get too lost into this conversation, but I do believe that conversations with this kind of depth deserve to be backed up by biblical truths. Now, with that being said, I do believe that women should explore their rights when it comes to being independent. You should go get your degrees. You should submit yourself to God. You should, find out who you are and what God's plans are for you. I don't believe that womanhood is only tied to being a wife and a mother. And myself, I am a stay-at-home wife and mom. And it is something that is hard to navigate when you're learning how to get back into that world of being quote unquote independent, but having dependents relying on you. So that is just a whirlwind of, the change. But for me, it's also breaking generational curses. And I came from a married household, or, I came from a 2-parent household, but truly, I don't believe that the marriage was ordained by God. And, by the grace of God, I was able to take the positives and whatnot and learn from the negatives and apply that to my life. But I'm still breaking barriers. I'm still breaking the generational curses. I'm still relearning how to love, how to respect my spouse, how to serve my spouse, how to submit myself to my spouse and to God, and lead my children, and how they're going to absorb all of this. And my husband and I's marriage is their love story, the first example. So all of these things are important to me. But what I want to say is, although I came from people who were divorced, let me say, or either just having families out of wedlock, I came from that, and it is a blessing to be in a marriage that is ordained by God, and that in itself is generational curses being broken. But that also bleeds into my third point. I'm going to read into that, and then I guess we could get into the videos and all. So my third point, generational curses and the lack of value for marriage. Now, we live in a generation that doesn't value marriage. We run from commitment, fear submission, and glorify exploring our options. Many are trying to escape the trauma they saw growing up: divorce, dysfunction, infidelity, and having children out of wedlock. So instead of healing, we repeat the cycle or avoid marriage altogether. But I want to read Exodus chapter 20, verse 5, and it reads, "Visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children of the third and fourth generation." It's a generational curse, but through Christ, curses can be broken. Y'all, I want y'all to remember this, and that's exactly my point. Why marriage is so important to me. For me, when I expressed that I had desires of being married, and I got married at a very young age. I believe, I got married at 20 years old. I was engaged at 19. All these things. So y'all, and I had my first child at 21. But the thing is that so many people came to me saying, I think that you should wait. I think that, you're too young. I think you should explore, get to know what you like. And y'all, the Lord already broke these chains. People didn't know what I was dealing with prior, and by the grace of God, the Lord broke these chains where I was fornicating. I could admit that, so all sins are equal. So let's not shame one sin as if it's greater than the next. All sins are equal, and I am humble enough to say that I was fornicating outside of the will of God, clearly, and that is something that was a curse. We could say that, but at the end of the day, I am an adult, and I can admit my wrongs. I could right my wrongs, and I know that that wasn't of God, and that's something that I worked through. That's something that the Lord took me out of. And going into a marriage where I submitted myself to the Lord, I prayed and asked for answers. I was patient and waited for clarity. Going through that was a process that I didn't express to everyone. So hearing people coming to me and stating that, I should wait, honestly, it could have been the plan of the devil to destroy, you know what I mean? So God knows what life would have been if I did listen. And that could have been a curse that was ongoing. I could have continued to fornicate and then ended up pregnant and having children outside of wedlock, etc. Y'all get what I'm saying. But overall, all I'm saying is that me getting married was not only a blessing in itself, because of course it was ordained by God, but it cut the cord, y'all. It cut the cord. It set a new theme for those that come after. For those that come after, for my children and their children. It's a new example for what God's love is, how God blesses a marriage. So that is a testimony in itself. But y'all, I don't want to get too caught up. I know I'm rambling, but I honestly am passionate about these topics, and I do believe that these conversations are imperative for us to have, whether you're from the Black community, white, Spanish, whatever it is. We need to have these conversations as children of God. And I know that I do focus on the Black perspective, of course, because I am Black, but we were all welcome. And I would love to hear your perspective on the situation. But y'all, let's get into the video. Thank you for listening if you still are here, but let's get into it.
So the reason I asked that is I've watched almost every single podcast you ever did for about a year and a half. So much so that I bought into a lot of the things that you said. And for about 2 years, it led me astray and significantly damaged my personal life, including relationships.
How did it lead you astray?
Well, you told me to go sleep with a bunch of women and date multiple women at the same time, which I did, and it significantly damaged my life. And it wasn't until I actually turned around and started listening to Jesus Christ that I was saved. Now I'm happily married. I have one child now with another one on the way, and I've never felt happier. But I felt...
Congratulations, that's good. That's really good.
Thank you. And I know you're not against that, but my concern is what you're saying to men leads them astray, because I'm a walking example of it. And I think you're significantly damaging people, and especially you're leading people away from morality. Women are not objects. Women are created in the image of God, and they are valuable. And they should be treated as such. Why should God give you one of his children if you don't even know how to treat them?
So I had somebody come in my comments the other day talking about being married ain't no flex. Girl, you a lot. Baby, being married is the biggest flex you could ever make, okay? To have a man, especially a fine, strong man with a great brain and mind, shoot. For him to say he's going to protect and provide for you for the rest of your life, to have and to hold through sickness, through death, shh. Baby, yes, it's the best decision I ever made. Let me tell y'all something. If it's not a big flex, why are so many women at speed dating occasions and events? Why so many women on these dating apps looking for one? You don't even know what you're talking about. Being married is the best thing that could ever happen to a woman, especially when it's a good man. And let me tell you something. When you get that good man, you take care of that good man. That's what you do. You don't be no loudmouth controlling heathen with that man. You do your part as a woman for that man. The Bible says, he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing. So if it's a good man out here looking for a good woman, you better be the good woman or you ain't gonna get the good man. Baby, my marriage is lovely. I love it. He's my best friend. We pray together, lay together, eat together, travel together, love together, gossip together. We do everything together. We combine incomes together. We ball together. I help him make good decisions and he helps me. He's the head. I follow. Baby, my husband is everything. And you get you a good man, talking about being married is not a flex. Girl, you's a lie. Look at all these women. If it's not a flex, why, if you the only person in the crowd with your girlfriends getting married, everybody jealous of you? Because it's a flex. Even gay men out here trying to find a man to get married to, because it's a flex. So I don't know if don't nobody want you. You probably not marriage material. You better get your mind right. Start treating these men with respect. Because, baby, you don't want to be single out here in these streets. You don't. I haven't needed anything since I've been married. I haven't had a need for anything. My life has been well taken care of, and I'm grateful for it. So you better get you one, baby. Go America.
I do not get the hype around marriage. I really don't. When I was married, I found it to be really underwhelming and overrated. I never at any point felt like I was doing something special or magical. If anything, I felt like I joined a cult, you know, because people would get really weird about me going off script in terms of being a wife and just getting married. For example, I didn't take my ex-husband's last name when I got married. And if you didn't know this, if you're a woman and you marry a dude and you don't take his last name, people get real freaking weird about it. They get really worked up about it. People would ask me all the time. They would be like, what would you do if you had kids? And my answer would not bring them comfort, because what I would essentially tell them is I'd be like, if we do have children, they're taking my last name because I birthed them. I'm not going to labor and bring a child into the world just to give it some fucking dude's last name. That is my child. It is not part of my self-concept to credit somebody else for my work. Sorry. And that one would really rouse some people up. People really did not like that one. And to me, it seemed like the most logical thing, to be honest with you. I don't understand why we give children their dad's last names. It seems kind of wacky to me. And listen, I don't want any women in my comments justifying why they took their husband's last names or why their kids have their husband's last names. I don't care. Like, I don't have any hatred towards you. I know people just do what they do, but what I'm just talking about is my experience of not doing what everybody else is doing and how people freak out on you like you're in a cult. You know what I mean? So it's just odd. It was a really weird time in my life. And I just kind of felt like I was always getting this subtle pressure from the world around me to give up my personhood once I became a wife. And I really didn't like that. And I couldn't quite articulate it when I was married, but I can see it very clearly now.
Marriage is not important until you're in a real life situation where you cannot make decisions.
Case in point, had a patient. Car accident, horrible car accident. Had a wife, and not a wife, I'm sorry, had sister and mom up there swear that man was divorced. Mom, wife wanted him to do everything. I don't want you to do everything that you can for him. He had a TBI. Man was basically almost brain dead at the time. Every word, no, he doesn't have a wife. He doesn't have a wife. He doesn't have a wife. That's mom and sister. There's no wife. There are no adult children. There's a hierarchy, right? Spouse goes first. If you don't have any, if spouse goes first, living adult children or children who are of adequate sound mind and body, like they can make decisions. So older teenagers can make that decision. Then parent, then siblings, and so forth and so on. But the wife or the husband goes first. Mm-hmm. They were adamant that man is not married. About 2 weeks later, we get a knock. Hello, I'm the wife of so-and-so. What do you mean you are the wife of so-and-so? Man, bring me the paperwork. Brings the paperwork. Marriage license. The sister and the mom are screaming, they're divorced, they're divorced, they're divorced. No, they're not. They are legally separated. She still has the right. She said, pull all of it out. Shut it off. Turn it off. I don't want any of this. She let that man go to glory. Now, I say this for two reasons. One is because first of all, it's not what he wanted. He would not have wanted to have been kept alive like he was being kept alive. He wanted for his life to end. They'd done the paperwork and all those things. The wife, right? They had the advance directive. It was very clear that that's what he wanted. And even though they were separated, you might think, oh, they're separated, and she came in and pulled the plug because she was mad. That's not why she did it. She did it because that's not what he wanted. And the mom and the sister were doing all of these measures that he did not want. He was on a ventilator. He was on a peg tube. He was trached. All of these things that he did not want. The wife stepped in with her paperwork and said, nope, I don't want this, right? Two caveats to that. If you don't want your spouse that you're separated from to have control over that, when you file for that legal separation, you need to file for a POA, a power of attorney, healthcare, financial, the whole gamut. You need to do that, because if you don't, in her instance, she was able to come in and shut everything else down. If she had been bitter, right, and not wanted to do what he truly wanted to do, that could have been a horrible situation. But legally, we would have had no choice but to follow her wishes because she is the person in charge. This is a real thing. We have patients come in all the time. Well, I've been with him for 30 years. Okay. Where's your marriage license? Doesn't matter that you've been with that man for 30 years. Doesn't matter that you've been with this woman for 30 years. Where's the marriage license? And if you don't have the marriage license, I had one instance where I had a couple that had been together for 16 years, and that man went and got a power of attorney, a healthcare proxy, everything that woman needed to make decisions for him over his life, over his finances, over his property, over all of it. She had it right there in a folder. I can take that. We can work with that. But there's still legal documentation that says she has the right to make decisions for me. That's not what we're doing. Let's just be honest, because far too often I have these patients who are coming in here. Well, I've been with him for this, that, and the law. Okay, where is your marriage license?
It's a piece of paper until it ain't.
is not a piece of paper. I'm telling you right now. And you may think, oh, I'm not old enough, this won't happen to me. But you don't know how many times we have a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old in here in a car accident who's had a massive heart attack, a massive stroke, or what have you. They've been shot and they cannot make those decisions for themselves.
TBI.
Ask yourself who you want to make those decisions for. You 30 years old out here flapping in the wind and you ain't got no emergency contact besides your mama. Is your mama gonna do what you want her to do? I can tell you right now, my mama not gonna do what I want her to do. I'm gonna be cooked up to some of everything if it's left up to her, and I don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta make the appropriate decisions for yourself, because when push comes to shove, who's gonna make them for you? And there are some legal things that have to be in place, and if they're not, then it's gonna fall to your legal next of kin. And if we can't find your legal next of kin, now you become a ward of the state.
Yeah, but listening to that, the other caveat is you better make sure you know who you get into a relationship and who you marrying, because you end up in a situation and that person does fall into that bitter state, and then you end up in the hospital and now you're gone.
So unfortunately, we've had situations where you've been separated from this person for 10, 15 years and y'all are not together. Y'all have been separated. Y'all ain't spoke to each other in 10 years. I got to run a true people search. I got to find out if you've been out here and you're married and you have, this girlfriend, this fiance who comes in here saying I'm the wife, but you're not. I get that y'all have been together for a decade, but you're not. He's legally married to someone else. And as much as you probably have his best interest at heart, I cannot go by what you're asking. I got to find her. I have to. I don't have a choice. Legally, I got to go find his wife. And I have to do what's called a diligent search before I can default to someone else. And it's still not going to default to you. No. Now I got to go find his mama.
Right.
Does he have any living children? He got a mama, daddy, brother, sister, auntie, uncle, cousin. I got to go through all that line before I can eventually make it to you. But if I find that wife that he ain't spoke to in 15 years and she wants to be involved, baby, she can say you can't even come up here no more if she want to.
You just in the corner mad.
Cut it all off. And we've had it happen. We have had it happen. Now I got to get ethics involved. But legally, you have no dog in that fight. I know y'all like to say marriage is a piece of paper, but honestly, it's more than a piece of paper. You can make it a piece of paper if you choose to, but it's more than a piece of paper. This man knows my everything, not just how I would want to spend my last days if something was going on with me, but he knows. He don't know how I like my coffee because he don't want me to drink no coffee, but he knows how I like to sleep. He knows how I like to dress. He knows when something is bothering me. Like, he knows all of that. It's not just a piece of paper. There's more to marriage than a piece of paper. But you realize that piece of paper really, really matters when you get into these situations and you need that piece of paper.
Now, let's get into the fourth point. Black marriage statistics compared to other communities. Let's take a look at the numbers. According to census data, only 35% of Black adults are married, compared to 48% of Hispanics, 52% of whites, and 61% of Asians. Now, why is there a gap? There are multiple reasons: historical trauma from slavery, breaking family structures, mass incarceration of Black men, and cultural shifts encouraging hyper-independence, lack of relationship role models. And this isn't to shame, but it's to understand and to create and work on change. And that all goes back to the points that I've made previously. Y'all, so to make this video short, I'm just going to provide my last point, and we could make this a two-part video because I have a bunch of more points that are written down, and we can expound on that in the next video, of course. But the last point that I have is men and misplaced intentions in marriage. So y'all, I know I was going ham on the women, but it's not just women. Let's talk about the men. Some men marry for benefits, especially in the military: more pay, better housing, high status, higher status, excuse me. But what happens when the foundation is built on benefits and not love? The marriage falls apart. Kids are left in broken homes, and the man becomes bitter and discourages his sons from marrying. Y'all, we have seen this cycle before, and that's what I spoke on as well when it comes to the women. But y'all, we've heard the don't buy a car without test driving it. This is a popular quote. This encourages fornication. And I want to read out of 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18. And it reads, flee from sexual immorality. And let's also go into Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4. And it reads, marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure. And when a man misuses his position as a husband, it becomes spiritual abuse. We could read Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25. That reads, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Now, y'all, I just want to dive into that a bit more. Well, just my fifth point, and that is men in misplaced intentions in marriage. So a lot of people go into marriage for the benefit. A lot of people are forced into marriage or feel the pressure, societal pressure. They see the benefits, etc. But I really wanted to use the military as an example because there are a lot of status and pay benefits when you do have a wife, or you're married, you have the husband, the dependent, and you get paid more. Okay, but another thing is I really wanted to use that because a lot of people go into marriage for the societal benefits and not for the spiritual benefits. But I do believe that marriage is a flex. It's a flex when it's done correctly. It's not about the ring. It's not about the wedding, but it's about the spiritual blessing that God has ordained. God put you in the position for a man to care for you, for you to submit to, for him to provide, protect, and honor you as Christ, Jesus Christ, did to the church and continues to do for us. So that is honestly my point. I do believe that marriage is a flex, but it's not a flex to abuse. It's not something to show off. It's not about the ring. Who cares about the ring? Of course, do as you please. Myself and my husband, we did the courthouse thing. We went to elope, y'all. We didn't tell anyone. We had a good time, and however you do it, just remember, whether you have an extravagant wedding, you have your perfect dress, your hair dolled up, whatever and however you do it, just make sure that you first and foremost submit yourself to God. You go to premarital counseling. If that's the last thing to do, go to premarital counseling. I do advise couples to do that and seek wise, godly counsel, as well as really just submitting yourself to God, asking him for guidance. Is this a person that God chose for you and not your flesh, So that is something that I will bat for. Marriage is a flex. I really want to know your thoughts and opinions on this topic, of course. Let me know down in the comment section below. I know that the points are, in a sense, everywhere. They do all come together for the point that marriage is a flex, but I did want to dissect the reasons why people may think that it's not, and that is due to the generational curses and maybe the marriages that people went into in the past. Let's say our mothers, our grandmothers, and great grandmothers, their marriages may not have been ordained by God, and it was just for survival. So that's probably the reason why they're passing down that toxic idea of marriage. And even for the men, we see some men, they get hurt in these marriages where maybe that woman was just using them for the benefits, or just because she wanted that wedding, or to be tied to whatever wealth he had, since she wasn't able to achieve that on her own due to society's positions and not allowing women to have their rights. What if it was that, and then they break up, and then it's like, oh, you shouldn't get married, son, for X, Y, and Z reason. And that's what we have going on in society. And also, y'all, we have to shame the devil because he is responsible for planting these seeds as well, whether it comes to the music and, you know, these quotes that people continue to spread on to generations, test driving the car before you buy it, and then that leads into just a cyclical, I don't know, like it just leads into those repetitive cycles of destruction and living outside of the will of God, going against his word. So yes, y'all, I truly just want to encourage you to trust in God. Submit yourself to him first, and he will strengthen you. He will guide you, and he will bring that man to you. In the scripture, it reads, "He who finds a wife finds a good thing." So that means that you were already a wife before that man found you, if that's God's will for your life. So keep that in mind, stay encouraged, and continue to seek the Lord. Y'all, seek the Lord. But at the end of the day, marriage is a flex when it's a marriage by God. That's my point. Thank you guys for tuning in. May the Lord cover y'all, bless y'all, and keep y'all. And I know I stated I was going to repost my last video, but y'all, I didn't get to it, unfortunately. I'm going to repost it because there was some audio discrepancies. I don't know what was going on with the audio, to be honest. But we're going to fix it, and I'm going to be a woman of my word, although it was a bit delayed, and repost that video. Thank y'all. I know there's a shift. The change has come, and I am fully submitting myself to God, and he shall add unto me. So I pray that the Lord does the same for y'all. Stay safe. God bless y'all. Tell me how you are liking these videos. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like and share with a brother or sister in Christ who is either battling with the idea of marriage being a flex or not, or a man or woman who doesn't want to get married. Of course, you have your own perspective. I would love to hear yours. Share it down in the comment section below. Thank you for tuning in. Y'all stay safe. God bless y'all. Bye.
Save her mind. Hold her hand. And don't believe a lie. You understand me. Walk her down the valley. Pack a piece of heaven for the bottoms of her feet.